Yo everybody, hey, I'm the Reverend Rob. We're here and we're doing the show, the series I introduced before, 40 Tips for Those Over 40. And I have the distinguished honor and pleasure to be friends with the next guest we're going to introduce to you. The gentleman's name is Tim Chang, and we're here to talk to him. He's going to give us a little thoughts, can tell us a little about his background, his kind of road to success. I think it'll be very, very interesting. We're going to have a little bit of a dialogue back and forth, kind of give everybody a little bit of an idea that, you know, just because you're over 40 doesn't mean it's over and you're stuck with kids in the house and a wife and you can't do anything. And just a little bit of advice on what success is all about. And it's not all just money. We're here in the Silicon Valley. People over the age of 28 actually are still successful. So if you're a 28-year-old life coach, you can turn this off now because we don't got anything for you. Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Truly a privilege to come here and talk to you.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's just start right off with, let's give us a little bit of background, where you're born,
Sure.
kind of going through thing.
Yep. I was born in the early 70s. I just turned 46. Makes me definitely qualified.
You're qualified. Right? Perfect.
And I was born to basically immigrant Chinese parents. They came here for college, and like a lot of these classic tiger parent immigrants, there was a lot of scarcity, a lot of fear about how are we going to survive, how are our kids going to survive. And so growing up, not only were we pretty poor, but it was all about just getting good grades. And a typical Asian immigrant mindset is just get good grades, the world will take care of you. And I can maybe argue that I've been unlearning that lesson ever since, right? Because the problem with that is it sets you up well for just getting a job somewhere. But the problem is you're assuming someone else will take care of you, and that you're going to get your fair due by following the rules. And it also probably set me up always seeking external validation, because measure of success was that grade on the test set by somebody else. The GPA for what? To get into some nice school, which then you can compare to others. Did you get into the right school? Then for what? To get a good job somewhere, some company you can brag that, oh, I got into the right company. Right. The issue is none of this considers the notion that maybe the right path for you is not to follow external validation, but what your internal compass is. Maybe that's you starting your own company or launching your own band or label or whatever it is. But under this sort of model, it's typically because you're seeking external validation, it's jumping through other people's hoops, and it means you're very risk averse.
What was your first job out of school?
First job out of school was as a engineer, automotive engineer. And test driver for General Motors. I dropped out of my PhD program because I wanted to go see the world. So I got a job offer from GM in Japan, went over there for Delphi chassis systems, which used to still be part of General Motors, and we did like anti-lock brake systems, and I thought it was so cool. I was like traveling over Japan, China, Korea, test driving these new model cars and trying to make them brake and stuff like that. And it's perfect for a young 20-something. But more also because I had my bands and I was playing music at night, so I'd do my day job during the day. But I was really passionate about like my bands there and playing the Tokyo nightclub circuit and that sort of thing, right? Yeah. So serving two masters.
So then when you were doing the General Motors work and all that chassis repair, so what kind of turned you into leading into business? What got you saying like, hey, I want to go into business? And some of those, like, how did you break free of that? Like, you're like, okay, I got the stable job, I got a paycheck. Yeah. Because I know just a little bit about having a mutual friend. Of course. So like a note to Jack Dunham, what's up? That it wasn't necessarily like the easiest path the whole time, right? It
was a lot of work because you got to get the right grades and these tough engineering programs and trying to get those jobs, and those jobs were pretty demanding too. But I had that other love of music. So the thing that was kind of interesting is that I never considered myself interested in business. Honestly, I looked down on it. I was sort of like, I'm into technology and I'm into being a musician, and, suits and performing artists, they don't mix. Yeah. But what was interesting, what got me interested in business, honestly, was the verge where I almost got my dream of becoming a professional musician. The band was doing pretty well in Tokyo. We got kind of offered a verbal agreement to do a development deal with Sony Records. And then when we actually read the business terms, it was the crappiest economic deal ever. Yeah. And that broke my heart because I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost like getting your dream to realize it's just completely BS. Yeah. Right? And then that's when I kind of gave up my dream of becoming like a pro signed musician, and instead said, you know what, the business people write the rules and wield all the power. It's better to know that, right? At that time, I had also gotten a job as a product manager at Gateway Computer Company, and I actually fell in love with the marketing part of it, because marketing is its own sort of poetry and creativity. The way you position things or have kind of a whole different way to explain something, right, than just the technical description. That was as close to I could find as a performing art or storytelling in the world of business. And I kind of thought I like this. This is where my creativity can show in a different way. If I'm going to do this, I might as well learn business stuff. And so I gave up my dream of pursuing music and applied and got an MBA admissions at Stanford and said, if I'm going to do business, I might as well learn the lingo and have a proper network in that area.
There was something presented you didn't run away from. So this contract, it wasn't what you thought it would be, right? And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go learn that. I'm going to go fix that. Right? So to me, like actually part of this, and one of the tips is to say like, you weren't afraid to just like dig in and do it. Right? You weren't afraid to say, okay, I don't get all this business lingo and the language, but I do know this is not a good deal. How do I make sure I get a good deal? Right? Or help other people. In your case, like, because I do know a fact a little about your background that maybe we'll go into an episode next month if we get lucky. But, you know, another episode that, like, I know you go around helping people. You do a lot of philanthropy, you do a lot of advisement. I've seen you speak in a lot of cases where you're not getting paid, you're just trying to help people. You know, so I signed one of those deals where maybe I was, you know, not in my right state of mind, but it was just like, this is all I've ever wanted. You know, my parents were born, you know, here, but like by days. You know, my immigrants from Germany and Italy. And so growing up, you know, my dad was a truck driver. We had no money, no anything. I went out of high school and, you know, we didn't even have money for me to send me to college. I just started playing music. And I got into it, and then so all of a sudden, here we are 5 years later, and Warner Brothers presents me with a deal offer. I don't think I even read it. I just signed it. Right. And then, you know, a couple of years later, we have difficulties in the band, and I'm financially destroyed. Right. I mean, because they all in the legalese of the contract, right? All those things in there, they had us killed. But part of this and what I was saying is, but you go for that and you learn, right? And we're both sitting here right now because of those experiences. And we're not afraid for the next experience. So you work for a large investment firm, Mayfield. And you've been doing that. So you've been doing, over the years, you did your own investment too. Got into it, did your own investing, and came here. So music though, let's talk about like, so you're still, there's no way you say you've given up on your dream. You mentioned that, but that ain't it at all. You're still in your dream, in my opinion, right? You still play music all the time.
And the big insight there was realizing what you do for a living, i.e. to make money, doesn't have to necessarily coincide with what your passion or your life's work is. In fact, one form of freedom is if you can divorce the two. And I learned this too when we were a working band back in Japan. You know, we got this gig at the Hard Rock Hotel Valley where the house band there was so cool, getting flown there, until you realized you were on someone else's dime and you had to do exactly what they told you. And we had original material we wanted to perform, but when the manager said, you got to play Give Me One Reason by Tracy Chapman for the 28th time and let this tourist come on and sing with you, I was ready to like just quit right there and just say, wow, nothing has sucked the joy out of this art, this passion of mine, than its relationship. The string is attached to the money part of it. Right? And so, if anything, I enjoy music more today because I don't need to make a living from it. And I know that can sound like a cop-out. It's like not going for it. But to me, it was the freedom of playing only gigs I want to, or financing and creating my own gigs that created the joy back into it.
It's just an interesting point to divorce it for the value of purity, right? So just that notion to say that if you're doing something for the money of it, you're probably not doing the right thing. I don't care what it is, right? I mean, I think that you found a passion in business, right? It's not like you're doing business, just because, well, I have to pay the bills, right? I mean, you enjoy what you do business-wise. But then you also have this other side that says you follow your passion on your terms.
And that's the thing. If you can do it on your terms, that might be one definition of success in life, that you get to write the rules you play by. Remember, I grew up just jumping through other people's playbooks until I finally got to the end stage and realized, this is a crappy prize, I don't want this, right? So, and I couldn't get rid of music, I just loved it too much, but then when I no longer needed to try to make a living from it, the world opened up. Right. So that was the interesting part.
So, I mean, to me, hugely, like to drill home the point of the whole reason we're doing this webcast, or whatever you can call these things, that notion of being able to follow your heart with passion and divorcing it necessarily from any constraints, right? So like, that's what I've been trying to say is everybody I meet these days, especially, you drive up this crazy Sand Hill Road and there's billions of dollars, right? I mean, literally in investment capital. And the thing is instead of realizing that following your heart doesn't mean money, right? If you get money from following your heart, that's wonderful, but money is not a gauge of success. It just seems that's the path we've lost, and we're trying to kind of bring out again is that money and success aren't they're not correlated, right? They can be.
That's right.
But, so I think if, to ask you in this, from your vantage point with that interesting past, if you're going to give somebody, 40-year-old person, they're a little bit stuck. They have that, like, the 2.5 kids, a dog, and a wife live in, Tiburon, my dream home, by the way. Tip out to Pete's if you can get me to Tiburon. But if you were going to give someone a tip that kind of has that conventional life, but maybe they're ready for a change. Like, what would you tell them? You're speaking to a group of people that says, okay, I kind of know what I want to do, but like all these constraints, right? What's the steps? What do they do next from your vantage point?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of us hit that point in our 40s because you can no longer just pretend to be somebody you're not. And what I kind of find the path of human life is in your 20s and 30s, you know, if we're really honest, you do what you do because you're seeking external validation. And even deeper, you're following your biological programming, which is basically eat, don't get eaten, and spread your seed. So if we're super candid, almost everything anyone does in their 20s and 30s is to gain some edge for sexual reproduction, right? That's what the money is about. That's what all this stuff is about, right?
Big cars, everything.
So for most men, especially in your 40s, what happens is your testosterone level finally dies off enough that you can think clearly because, you know, getting laid is no longer the only thing clouding your brain, right? And then you have to ask all these uncomfortable questions of like, was this all worth it? What am I doing? What's the why behind of this? And I think the classic midlife crisis when people look back and say, God, I wasted my 20s and 30s. That wasn't really me. I wasted my time. I didn't follow my passion. I wasted my life. I don't think that's the case, actually. Another way to reframe it is, you walked this other path, fine. Maybe it wasn't your passion, but you picked up some interesting skills, networks, capabilities through that. Now you're more awake to what your true nature is and what your passion is. Your puzzle is how do you mash those two up? Because those skills you picked up along the way, they are useful for something. But again, back to this notion of could you reframe it in a way to serve that other interest? Is there a way to take that thing you were passionate about, plus these other skills you have, and form some new hybrid weird blend out of it? Just like a lot of good DJs, they come up with their voice by mashing up genres. Bands do that too. They blend genres which didn't mix together normally. I like to think of every person's life course as a mishmash of all these different disparate elements. And your job is to find your unique artist voice by blending those elements. And the fun part of it, they don't seem like they go together well. But if you sit back, I don't know, meditation retreat or just hang out on the beach long enough, you'll start to feel like, wait a minute, there might be a common thread through this stuff. And you might unlock some weird combo that's unique to you, that's not obvious, but only you can pull off. And that's what I think the 40s are about figuring out.
You get taught by a lot of people when you listen to about entrepreneurship in the Valley. Everybody has this all in. You know, I don't really believe that. You know, I've had more failed businesses than success for sure, right? And the gig is, you know, the ones that have failed the worst for me when I kind of just jumped in with both feet without a plan, and I had no income, no backup. So the thing is, nothing will turn like a business faster than running out of money. It's a business, right? But if you know, you realize you can take all this, I think you just explained that mishmash of your 20s and 30s, be objective, and then you can start doing things slowly. And I think the notion is, look, when you get off work and you put the kids to bed at night, what do most people do from 8 to 1 in the morning? They're searching the LinkedIn, they're looking at Instagram, they're watching some stupid television show on TV. That's a lot of hours of the day. That if every single day you just take 1 or 2 hour step toward what you love, whether it's learning, whether it's advertising, whether it's marketing, reaching out to people, that's a lot of time.
That's right.
And I think you can make a lot of, you can make a lot of forward progress.
Hopefully you might have saved up just enough dough, by your 40s that you get to do things a bit on your own terms. Like, for example, music, production tools and whatnot are cheap enough. And now at our age, we can afford most instruments or whatever. You can set up your own little studio. You don't have to go rent time somewhere, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or you could finance your own gig somewhere. So, you could just set up your own bookings. So maybe you have a bit more financial freedom than before. Because in your 20s and 30s, you're starving and you don't have that much money and you're just living paycheck to paycheck. Ideally, you've saved up enough you could have a bit more financial freedom to weave back in your personal prior interest in a way on your own terms. That could be cool.
One last tip. So I remember one time Jack and I, keep referring, we're going to interview Jack at some point, but Jack and I were talking about, like, it was exactly that. I was like, what's cool about being a little older in a band? We want to, like, kind of get a jump start. Okay, so do we want to play the clubs on Tuesday night to 4 people? No, I really don't. But you know what we can do? We can rent Slims. We can hire Social Distortion to be the headlining band. And we'll open for Social Distortion, financing the whole gig because we have the money. It's not actually that expensive.
How cool is that?
And then, not only are we playing in front of Social Distortion, that's some love right there. But I mean, you're built in playing to a crowd of 5,000 people your first gig instead of 3, on a Wednesday night, right?
Exactly. This is actually an illustration of how you divorce needing to make a paycheck from what you did versus being able to fund and finance your own dream gig. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another example of that is one of the reasons that Coverflow plays music is we never make money from it. Our conditions usually are we playing for a good cause? Are we actually helping raise money for others? And so in a weird way, what used to be a very self-indulgent act of playing music is now turned into a form of service. So in a way, it's like you're doing what you love to help other people. That's my other tip for folks too, is in your 40s, you stop worrying about what's in it for me, and you actually start to think about, I wonder if this helps other people. And that's a really powerful motivation, way beyond just money, way beyond just fame and validation and those sorts of things.
I think the trap that a lot of people get in is, if you listen to a lot of podcasts, they talk a lot about serving others. But then when you listen to the underlying theme, it's serving others to gain. Right. And that's not, in my opinion, the best cause, right? I mean, if you, like you said, you get to yourself, you get to a point in your 40s where you can say, I really do just want to help somebody else, right? If you've got no motive behind it, you're saying, like, even if I help you and I lose, that's okay, right? I went in it to help you. I'm not expecting you to help me.
Correct.
Or give back. Right?
I think that's the true measure of something's really service, that you don't have an expectation back out of it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's also a key to success, and even deeper, what Dalai Lama really refers to as happiness. When you're in service of something bigger than yourself, you're not trying to get something out of it. There's almost joy in just doing it for others.
I remember one day, like, waking up and I was like, all right, I need to go get some coffee or something. So I wake up and I'm in my sweatpants and like some shirt that's kind of doesn't match and my flip-flops, and I was like, all right, I got to get ready to go to the store. And it was like, no, I'm going like this, dog. And then it's just, and the metaphor behind it was, I just felt like I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. I have a mission. I've got something to do. I've got something to offer. And like, I feel like I can kind of live on my terms a little bit. Like, you know, if you're working for somebody or working with somebody and they ask you a question, you know, you can finally learn to like disagree without being disagreeable. Yeah. Because I don't have anything to prove. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just trying to live and be my honest life and say, this is me.
That's right.
And if I want to go to work and, you know, and have this conversation, I will, or I don't have to live for other people anymore.
Yes. That perhaps is another definition of success, is when you finally stop worrying about what others think about you. Yeah. That is a form of ultimate freedom.
You drive around in Tiburon on the weekend, it always cracks me up. It's like, it's obviously a very nice place. I mean, you live in the valley and the whole area. And it's so funny, like you drive around there and the cars are like really just normal, humble cars, right? And you would think, especially, you look at these houses up on the hill and, you know, there's houses up there that are in the double-digit millions, right? Easy money, right? I mean, there's one up there I've been to, a $30 million home, right? Pretty home by a musician, Van Morrison, funny guy. And but yet they all have these very modest cars. I remember one time talking to a guy in a Pete's there, and I said, you know, guiltless plug for Pete's again. But so I remember talking to the guy, and we were just saying something, and I said, I got to ask you, man, you know, a Camry? And he was like, it's the best car to go to the grocery store. Why wouldn't I got to go to the grocery store? Yeah, and it was really an epiphany for me, because I thought, like, okay, this is crazy. This guy could be going to the store in a Bentley, and if he crashes, he doesn't care. He's buying another Bentley. Right. But he was like, but the Camry's the best car for the store. Right. And you're like, man, there's something to be learned there, right? Yeah. He's living on his terms now.
I think so, and it's because you let go of what other people think. Because let's be honest, the reason you wanted that Lamborghini or whatever is because you wanted to impress that girl or whatever it was. Right. It was for somebody else. It wasn't necessarily for you. Yeah. And I remember when I first did get a fancy car, it actually was a nightmare, because anytime I scratched it, drove me nuts. Right. You know, worried about parking it and all this stuff. And so that's why I learned that possessions actually possess you after a while. You know, it's so weird. Like in your 40s, you can learn to let go of that. These days, I'm like, I just want to purge it all. Like, you know.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I know you're busy. We don't want to take a lot of your time. But again, everyone, Tim Chang, we can't thank you enough. It is truly a pleasure, actually, you know, to be your friend. I've learned a lot, even just listening to Jack and whatnot through you. So
right back at you.
It's always a pleasure. Tim, I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep.